No, I don't think anybody knew where any of the characters were going, but I certainly think because they had done the backdoor pilot, which was the transition episode that brought Kate to Oceanside Wellness from Seattle. And I wasn't a part of that at all. When I got hired, I didn't know if I was going to Grey's Anatomy or if I was going to this new show with Kate Walsh. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go wherever I'm needed, you know, if this works out. But I just did a meeting with Shonda and her producing partners, and we just talked. And then I got a call that said, you're going to do the show. And the thing is, or we're offering you the show, and obviously I was going to do the show. That would be ridiculous. But the evolution was not clear. And I remember that first conversation with Shonda when she offered me the role, which was very lovely. And it's such a cool thing to get a phone call from the person and not to hear it from other people first. It's just, it's her generosity, frankly, because not everybody does it that way. And I think that's the excitement she gets to hear when an actor knows they've just gotten a job, I think, is really special. And it says a lot about her. But I remember our conversations were, you know, interesting because she told me I was gonna have fun. She said it was gonna be sexy and we were gonna have a good time. And that was all I knew. And then when I saw the first script, I was like, oh wow, she's a pistol, you know? So that for me was immediately like, this is so different than I am. I can't wait to do this. But for her to find that vulnerability and to really come through, particularly I think when you go from that first season, which was short because of the writer's strike, we jumped into 2, things started shifting, all the back and forth with Cooper and Charlotte, into the assault, into how that changed their dynamic, all the things of getting married before that, the push and pull of those 2. You know, she grew up a bit on screen, is really what it felt like for Charlotte King. The vulnerability and softening that she had to work so hard to achieve was her version of growing up. And one of my most favorite things that no one ever could have anticipated was after the triplets. I thought it was so funny that here they are, they're at a hotel and she's got all of her gear on the bed and both of them were like, can we just sleep? That was so unexpected to me. And Paul and I were like, at this point, I was like, I'm not a parent yet, but I've seen you become very tired, so this is great. Yeah, that was very important to me, the qualities of being at once strong through vulnerability. Like, how do you show a human being have resolve and resilience and vulnerability? Because I think that's kind of, to me, what's very interesting in human nature. How do we constantly survive things? And how do we allow more new experiences that soften us? Vulnerability is huge, but so is resilience. And I think part of an actor and the lifestyle we live, we're constantly making ourselves available to be heartbroken because we invest everything into whatever we audition for or the character we want to play, and whether or not you get the role or you don't get the role. When you don't get the role, it's terrible if you want it badly. And sometimes it's just like, well, I just want to be on set. Well, I mean, that's a no-brainer. But they have a different idea, and there's nothing you can act when their idea is something specific. You don't know what they want, but they know what they want. And sort of actors' jobs are to solve problems. We're there to be the solution to your casting issue. Interesting thing is, equally, you can get the job, and you think it's going to be amazing, and you think it's going to be well received, and either nobody sees it or it just doesn't work. It's nobody's fault. It just happens. So it's a very strange reality that is somewhere between softness and resilience, because you get kicked down a lot. And when you can marry that in an actual character, because we live it so much, it's really cool, because in some ways I think Charlotte King built my resilience as a person. Yes. And it's very easy with Paul. He makes that stuff so fun and so easy. Caterina's, again, so easy to work with, but she is also a very well-researched person. She knows what she's talking about. I can speak for myself and say that I spent time in Al-Anon meetings because I thought that would be an essential connection between not just two addicts, but once you're the sober person, someone falls off the wagon, that triggers you in a certain direction. It also provides you with an opportunity for the character to question her own sobriety, having to really maintain herself but want to be there for the other person. And I think with addiction in particular, there's a lot of anger towards people you love if they can't get it together. And also there's a lot of anger for them because I was with her not long ago and we were talking about, I want drugs, I want them now. I think our line was something like that where she had to chant that. And I just remember thinking when I watched her, God, that is so hard to pull off. And it was so powerful to be working with her. So that connection of just being with a great artist in the moment, watching them do something that blows your mind, triggered, okay, even as the actor, I'm floored by what you're doing, but if I was a sober person who loves you, watching you wreck your life, and I know what it's like to wreck my life, where does that come from? And we'd have these conversations a lot about like the addict and the Al-Anon. Like we'd really tried to really work on, and then the two addicts together, because that's a really interesting thing to play. And it's specific to the characters. And she and I would really sort of work to navigate, but it was really about trust too with her, which I trust her on this. It's a part of, and it's very interesting because several of the Grey's Anatomy private practice people were very involved in supporting the Vice President Kamala Harris, and we did things together as a unit. It's a very activated culture that is Shondaland. No matter what your activation is, different people care about different things and they support them. Specifically though, I will say regarding the election that just happened, what that really did was fine-tune different people's care points. And there was a call that we were all on, and Chris Lowell said something really beautiful, who played Del. And what he said was, I was young when I joined the cast, and I felt the same way even though I was older than him. In that environment, particularly with Kate and Amy, they were such activists already. And I'd never really been around actors that didn't do it, that did it for the right reasons. You know, I mean, they really, it's real. Jason George is the same way. It is a call to stand for something. And I mean, you'll even hear my voice is changing as I'm talking. Sorry. But when you're called to do something for things that you care about, you must. And as actors, we care deeply. That's sort of part of our human nature. But when you want to talk about survivors of sexual assault not being able to have health care that supports their needs, after you do a storyline like I did, I can never turn away from the activism to aid women for having health care, to aid survivors of sexual assault, to aid the LGBTQ plus community. You know, we did a storyline, I believe it was called Shortcuts, and Brian Ben and I were working with someone who wanted to transition. And I loved that the one who was like, let's go, was Charlotte. Charlotte was so like, yes, and I don't think that would have been the assumed thing. And I love that about that character because there was always something to unveil with her. And that's one of my favorite episodes. The actor that was on the show with us was stunning. And I was very moved by it. I got to work on things that were very moving. But that perspective, to advocate for someone who needs health care to become the best version of themselves, I'm never gonna not support that. It goes in so many different avenues because of the activation of that set. So yes, we get politically involved, and the point of view is this: it's not celebrity support, it's Americans who care about the country, who care about people's rights, who care about certain things that have meaning to them personally, whether it be health care for people that are differently abled, whether your child like Caterina working on behalf of Down syndrome and was just, I believe, on Capitol Hill maybe. She just does so much. So it's a community of activism that has spread itself through Shondaland, and I am so grateful to have not only had this amazing character, but to become an activated outward person for what I believe in. And it's not, you know, people aren't always with social media. It's important to give voice to things, but it's also just for yourself to be a citizen, you know, and to be a human being who loves what they love. Long-winded answer, but what do you know? It's me. You know, if you do a medical show and you talk about people losing children and people losing their lives in order to get children and wanting children, all those things were very much a part of this last election for us and what that means. And we told those stories over and over. So I'm going to be interested to see what Grey's Anatomy does with this next season around healthcare and things. It's because the writers always take reality and turn it into some form of magic. That's part of why I think people love the show. So we'll see. What Kate suggested today on the panel about would there ever be a storyline, I thought that idea was brilliant. I mean, it's very timely. It also would make perfect sense in the world. And I would be joyful to ever, you know, do scenes with those guys again because I love them. And also, I love this character deeply and I always will, so. And I love our country. And when I think about the opportunity we have as storytellers to reflect humanity, that's what I love doing. I mean, when you said that, you experience it here too. It's a very universal language right now. How we move forward as a society in a direction that services everyone to the greater good is what I'm interested in. And I think art has the opportunity right now to really reflect that. And I hope that people that are profound writers and talents get the opportunities with freedom to speak about things that matter to them, as well as, you know, certain other individuals who have different ideas, because I think we should all have the opportunity to speak our ideas. Well, we'll see. We'll see what we do as humans. We do a lot.